Here we go. All right. So please, if everybody would mute, I'd be appreciated. All right. Good morning, everybody. My talk this morning, as you know, is Cultivate the Good. Cultivate the Good. And I want us to look at what it is to cultivate the good in our lives. You know, each of us has this amazing heart with this amazing capacity for profound love and kindness and compassion. And we have minds capable of creating so much joy and so much beauty and so much healing. We are capable of creating heaven on earth, like that song from John Lennon. And we have these amazing, intricate nervous systems, complex nervous systems that are really a miracle. And our nervous systems enable us to feel vibration and feel high vibration, expansive energy. And we are capable of feeling so deeply one with one another and with God. And so we are like a lotus. We are each like this lotus. I love the lotus flower. It has so many petals. We're like a lotus flower with a million petals, and some people are still in a tight bud. Their petals are all still in a tight bud, and even the leaves are still covering those petals. And then there are some people that are beginning to blossom. We're on this giant bush of humanity. And then there are many that have petals open and many petals open, and those that are blossoming daily and growing daily. And then there are some that are rather surrounded with thorns, right? So our destiny is to blossom. We want to make sure that our blossom, that the blossom that we are, our life blossom, opens, and that it doesn't just freeze and fall off the plant, and die before opening, right? For lack of care, for lack of good nutrients that help us grow. And so, how do we blossom? How do we unfold more and more and more of our beauty, of our divine nature? It is by cultivating the good, cultivating the good. And by cultivating what's good for our mind, and what's good for our body, and what's good for our spirit, and what's good for our nervous system, what's good for our life overall. There's a beautiful sacred text from the Talmud that says, every blade of grass has its angel. Every blade of grass has its angel that bends over it and whispers, grow, grow. Imagine if a child hears every day, you are so precious. You can do it. I'm so glad you were born. Grow, my child. Blossom, my child. As children of a loving creator, this is the truth of us. We are so precious. Our birth is so important. We each have a purpose and a destiny here to fulfill. And there are angels whispering in our ear if we are listening, and they are saying, grow, grow. It reminds me of a song I sang for you all about a month ago. One of the verses say, do you know there are angels in flight, and they know you by name? And they whisper a song on the wind. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. Close your eyes. Feel the wind in your hair. Feel the breeze on your cheek. Smell the fragrant flowers in the air. And let your heart be at peace. Let your heart be at peace. Let your mind be at peace. Grow in peace. Grow in love. Grow in spiritual wisdom. There's a beautiful quote from Elaine Powell that says, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. What we become is our gift to God, especially if we choose to grow in goodness and in love and in peace and in stillness within, and equanimity, being able to take the ups and downs of life with poise, and with kindness and with forgiveness and with awareness of our oneness with all beings, even those beings who think differently than us. When I see the suffering in our country right now, I saw an interview a couple of days ago It was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was being interviewed, and she was talking about her experience a week ago of being in the Capitol during this recent mob attack. And she was sharing that she was so in fear of losing her life, at key moments in that day, that she was having all these end of life thoughts. She didn't expound on exactly what she was thinking. But I imagined, when I heard her and I watched her, that, she wanted to tell her loved ones how much she loved them, that sort of thing. Those are the kind of the thoughts you have at the end of life. And I could feel her trauma from going through that experience. And I had this overwhelming feeling of sadness, because the suffering that she went through was so unnecessary. It was wrong. She didn't deserve to go through that. All the people that were terrorized by that experience, they didn't deserve that, you know? And what created that situation was the outcome of a lot of cultivating what is not good, what is divisive and hateful. It was the cultivating of ignorance that fomented into rage that led to violence. And violence is never the answer, ever, 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 ever. So I let myself cry some tears. Sometimes I cry tears for myself, but quite often I feel like I'm releasing for others that I know are suffering and for the collective that are suffering. But I don't despair. I don't feel despair because I know that the answer is that we need to heal and we can heal. I know the answer is to water the seeds of understanding, make contact with each other, learn how to communicate so that we can reach out and we can gain understanding of someone who thinks differently and calm the anger. Anger never serves. Anger never comes to anything good. And tell the truth and find common ground and heal our divisions. I know we can do it. I imagine a world living as one, and I know it's possible. I know we can move more in that direction. I feel really hopeful that we are. That we are. The angels are whispering in the ears of humanity, grow, grow together, people, grow together. Come on, people, now. Love one another, grow together in harmony and in peace. According to Thich Nhat Hanh, I think I'm saying that right. Our mind is a field. Our mind is a field, like an open meadow, in which every kind of seed is sown. There are seeds of compassion, seeds of joy, seeds of hope, and there are seeds of sorrow and fear and difficulties. And Ty says that seeds refer to all the information that enters our awareness and gets stored in our consciousness. So think of a typical day, right? What kind of seeds or information are you allowing to enter your consciousness? Are you keeping inspiring company that stretches your mind and uplifts your heart and expands your vision? Or do you allow in media and conversations that close your heart and mind and keep your vision narrow? Surveying what we take in mentally is like surveying what we eat in our diet. It's so similar. There's like food for the mind and there's food for the body. And it's the same kind of discernment that's required. Are we taking in junk food for the mind, or are we taking in what's nourishing, what's truly nourishing, what grows us towards good? As we grow wiser, we get better at being a gatekeeper, a protector of the garden of our consciousness. And we become very particular about what is planted and what is watered in our garden. And there really are basically two kinds of seeds that grow in our garden. One of them creates suffering. Those seeds create suffering. And then there are those seeds that grow love. And when we see, this is what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is noticing what you're watering in your mind. If we're watering seeds and thoughts that leave us angry, that leave us divisive, that leave us depleted or hopeless, we notice that and we weed those seeds out. We weed those beginning of plants out so they don't grow in us. And we turn our attention to what gives us hope and we water that. We water the things that uplift our energy. I've been I've been watching less news. I think an hour is plenty. And I also do this thing where between news, when I mute it because of a commercial, I go to Aura. If any of you have Dish, Aura plays, such a fantastic variety of new age music. And some of those folks I know I've done concerts with before. And so I go there. And so it's beautiful. Even if you are listening to the news every, 10 minutes, you have this break of this peaceful music. And it actually keeps me centered and able to listen to the news with detachment, and keep that equanimity and not get upset by it. So little things like that help us cultivate the good. Our life is like our work of art, and we're all artists. Our life is a work of art, and it can be a horror movie, or it can be an epic love story. We get to choose. We're creating it. And the medium for creation is consciousness, is our consciousness. Greg Braden says, with the power of consciousness, we can transform the limits of our own past beliefs. Remember, we are the art as well as the artists. It all begins with healing our past beliefs. So I was trying to think of an example, and I have a good one. It's humbling to tell you this story, but I'll tell you. I'm so very human. Just last week, I learned something new. I became more unlimited. I had these plans to go up to my mom's and take this new Shark vacuum, this really cool purple vacuum I bought my mom, to take it up to her house and just clean, clean, clean like crazy. And I did. I went up there and I cleaned her house from top to bottom. And then I had planned to make her some delicious soup, her favorite soup. And so I did that. I made her this giant pot of white bean kale soup with potatoes and carrots and onions, and it was delicious. But by the time I was done, I was exhausted. Um, and I think she was exhausted just from watching me clean and cook. And she was not in a great mood. And she said something like, "Well, I don't need you to clean. I'm fine with it dusty," you know, and just kind of this flippant, I didn't even really need you to do that. Right. And it hit me the wrong way. And then she said something else equally irritating. I don't even remember what it was. But when I left for the evening, I was not feeling happy. I drove home and I couldn't shake the feeling of feeling, kind of a little resentful and unappreciated. And so after a day of reflection, I realized that I had an attachment to being appreciated. I was attached to hearing my mom's grateful praises. And I realized that if I could not clean and cook as an act of selfless love without any expectation of even praise in return, then I shouldn't do it. And so now I've upgraded my belief system. And what I believe is, if you do things without attachment to praise or appreciation, just out of selflessness, out of pure love, you will not suffer if no gratitude is forthcoming. And if gratitude is forthcoming, it'll just be a bonus, right? So this is growth. These are little things, but this is growth. I watered the seeds in me of non-attachment. Those are good seeds. I watered the seeds of in me of learning to give more out of pure love without expectation. And I became freer when my belief system included realizing that attachment brings suffering, and that this love is not truly pure love if it's conditional, right? Hafiz wrote about unconditional love. He said, "And still, after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.' Look at what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky." I love that. The sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." It just lights the sky. Pure love. So our minds can also go in the other direction, and actually I'd say that's quite more common, that our mind goes in the other direction and it digs into its belief systems, its limited belief systems. And it actually did for me. It did for a couple hours, and then I, with mindfulness, noticed it. And that's where, we stick with our old belief and we justify it. Right? An example would be me believing my mom doesn't deserve a clean house because she shows no gratitude. And I did. I'm ashamed to say I did have that thought briefly. But that belief would be really watering the seeds of conditional love, which really isn't love at all. It's more a bargain. It's this for that, right? So, life's simple daily experiences are the way that we grow spiritually and we grow towards the good. Things like vacuuming for your mom, can offer us growth opportunities and ways of upgrading our belief system, ways of cultivating more good and learning to love and serve more unconditionally. That is especially good. So, um, I've been enjoying a new book. I meant to hold it up. I don't have it here, but I ordered a new book on Amazon I love so much. And I'm probably in the minority, but I get really excited about giant books of world scripture. And this is a new book of comparative anthology of sacred text. And I can look up any subject, and then I'll see all this scripture from all these different faith traditions. And I looked up Cultivate the Good, and I read this from Confucianism, which is from the I Ching, verse 42. It reads, "The superior man, seeing what is good, imitates it. Seeing what is bad, he corrects it in himself." And I could repeat that again and say, "The superior woman, seeing what is good, imitates it. Seeing what is bad, she corrects it in herself." I like that. It took me a while to look at my own faults instead of my mom's, right? It took me about a day and a half. But my mom's evolution is not my job. Her life is her art. My life is my art. My job is seeing that if I'm suffering, ask myself why. Get to the core of, why am I suffering? I'm suffering because I want praise for being such a saint of a daughter. And I wouldn't suffer um, if I wasn't attached, right? So my work is to learn to be less attached, and seeing attachments in myself and setting them free, setting them free. Okay. A few months back, I gave a talk about mirrors, how everything in life is like a mirror. We're looking in the mirror, we're seeing a reflection of a aspect of our own being. And Greg Braden writes about 15 keys of conscious creation. And the last key, number 15, says, "This world is a mirror of what is within." This world is a mirror of what is within. And he says, if we have curiosity and wisdom and courage to explore what the mirror of life is showing us, we can learn very quickly. If we have courage and curiosity to look at what's the world showing us, what reflections are we getting over and over and over and over, it's important to look at them, examine them. I think our country needs some deep collective reflection, some really deep examining of what seeds have been watered, not only recently, but over the centuries, and what seeds have needed to be watered that haven't been watered, and what belief systems we've held collectively, and that are still simmering, that need upgrading. Um, what belief systems are creating suffering and why? It's so important to look at that. And what belief systems create unity and harmony? It's such a great question. We have a great opportunity to grow into a nation of more good, a nation worthy to lead the world. And we need to examine deeply the violence and the hatred and the intolerance and the deception and the division, and be curious. Want to know, not want to defend your position, want to understand, and be interested in the consciousness that created the mirror reflection we're getting. And ask, how do we go about transforming that consciousness so it's not so limited, so it's not destructive to the common good? Say I was one of those people who went to the Capitol and rioted. Say I was one of those people, and now I'm sitting in jail because they found me on a Facebook from a Facebook post that I shared of me inside the Capitol. And say I had this really wise, peaceful cellmate in jail with me, a guy like you remember the character from Kung Fu, David Carradine. He was a Shaolin monk, and I watched every single one of those episodes. I love Kung Fu, that series Kung Fu. There's so many good teachings in that series. But anyway, suppose I'm in the cell with this monk, and I say to this monk, "This is really a drag. I don't know how I ended up here in this jail cell." And then he, of course, full of poise and serenity, says to me, this experience you are having is a perfect reflection of your state of consciousness and your belief system. That sounds like something Grasshopper would say. This experience you're having is a perfect reflection of your state of consciousness and your belief system. So, I would start thinking about that. I'd have a few days sitting there to do nothing but think about those words. And I would start getting in touch with my belief system and thinking, I believe that those liberals were awful people, and because I listened to a particular media outlet. So I believe that, and instead of going and getting to know those people, to see for myself, I believed, what I heard on the news. And I believed that I had to go and break windows and tear down doors and hit people with my flagpole because I had never studied the teachings of nonviolent protest and how successful that is from Gandhi or from Martin Luther King or from Nelson Mandela. And I believed that I was threatened by those of a different race and religion because that's how my parents felt. And that's how their parents taught them. But I never made the effort to go and make any Jewish friends or make an African American friend or an Asian American friend. And so, this new willingness to be curious and examine my belief system, to self reflect with humility instead of ego, like instead of I'm right, like let me look with humility and see what is bad or limited. I like the word limited better. What is limited in me? What do I need to change? And then, with that kind of reflection, I can make that choice. We have free will to change the old worn out belief system that I got from my parents, who got it from their parents. And see, this is how we grow, as we see that the seeds of hatred and being radicalized cause me suffering. That's what got me into jail, right? So it's time to make changes, and it's time to reach out and get to know those people that I've been calling the radical left or the far right, right? It's time to stretch myself and see if I can begin dialogue with people that are different from me or a different race or a different religion. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he was telling me about he's Jewish, and he was telling me about this situation he got in where he was having this conversation with a Nazi late at night in a bar. Uh, I can't remember where he was, somewhere in Europe, and he realized he was in danger, but there was a little bit of opening in this person he was talking to, and they had this conversation, and he wasn't sure if he was going to get out of there alive, but he left, and that man found him the next day and said, "You know what? You touched me. You opened my heart. You showed me something I needed to see." So it's a really, really powerful experience, an amazing story. And this is what we need more of. A little bit of higher consciousness, getting in that crack, getting beyond the ego and getting in that crack of the heart and changing someone's mind, which changes their reality, which changes our collective reality. So I personally commit to working on myself. I commit to understanding more and judging less. And I commit to being part of making changes in our society to uproot these toxic old belief systems that cause inequality and inhumanity. And I hope you join me. I hope you join me. This is how we cultivate the good. But I really feel hopeful. I feel really hopeful. I know we're still at the end of this pandemic. I think we've got a few more months. We have to be really careful. It's really bad right now, but we'll get through this. We'll get through this. We can do this. We can do this together and work towards greater good every day in our own life and work towards greater good in our spiritual community and our circle of family and friends and in our country and in our world. God gifted us with this precious life, and it is a precious gift. And so what we become each day is our gift back to the most loving Creator. Let us find a million ways to cultivate the good, to express goodness. So be it. And so it is. Thank you.